Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm 16 years old and well, you'll understand everything once you hear my story. I'm studying at the Academy, a prestigious boarding school that's just for boys. The story I'd like to tell you started when a new boy enrolled in our class. At that time, I had no roommate, and they assigned him to my room, much to my disappointment. But this newbie, Mikkel, turned out to be the perfect neighbor. He behaved discreet and in a very orderly manner. Actually, he was even cool. He did everything in time and with excellence. But when he started to communicate with other boys, I was unpleasantly surprised. Mikkel's favorite topic was girls. Well, not just girls. He was constantly talking about how they drool over him, about broken girls' hearts, and nearly mass fights over him. He was very dismissive, and I felt embarrassed for him. But in everything else, he was perfect, and we became good friends. We were always and everywhere together, except for hanging out in groups where Mikkel would make jokes about lovesick, foolish girls, which is what he usually called them, and he even read text messages out loud from his current girlfriend for the sake of entertainment and laughter from the surrounding crowd. I did not take part in this, but it didn't matter. Mikkel and I remained friends nonetheless. But one problem finally emerged, unexpectedly. I realized that I had fallen in love with my roommate. It would make no sense to reveal my feelings. It was more than obvious that Mikkel was only interested in girls, so I tried to keep my distance from him, but I figured out that I had become something like his shadow. We shared the same timetable, attended the same classes, and played the same sports. Also, Mikkel had started to become more and more sincere with me when we talked. Once, he told me that it was his father who had sent him to the academy, against his own will. He complained about his problems with his girlfriend, in a matter that greatly differed from his bragging in front of the other guys. Once, he confessed that he missed his dog terribly. It was hard for me. I pretended to be his good friend, but I was alone with my real feelings toward Mikkel, and I was overwhelmed by them. One night, Mikkel got a message from his girlfriend where she told him that everything between them was over, and you see, all I wanted was to simply support him, and I said, "That's okay, Meek. I still love you anyway. Too bad you're not interested in guys." Well, listen, I'm not an idiot. I really was kidding. All I expected was something like, "Oh yeah, I know, right? What a pity." But Mikkel went berserk. He turned red and yelled that I should have never dared to tell him such a disgusting thing. Maybe it was because I was silent for so long, but I yelled in response, "If it wasn't a joke, there's nothing to be that mad about anyway!" After that, I left, slamming the door. When I came back, Mikkel was already asleep, and I tossed and turned all night in my bed, regretting my pointless confession and hoping that Mikkel would just forget about it. We didn't have any classes the next day, and I woke up later than usual. Mikkel had already left. When I got to the athletic fields, I was nearly deafened by roaring laughter. It took me some time to realize that people were laughing at me. Mikkel was front and center on the stage, and he was talking so loudly, saying that before, he was barely able to put up with all the girly, sappy whining and attention that surrounded him, but that now he also had to deal with gay, sappy whining and attention. All eyes were turned on me, and this roaring laughter wouldn't stop. I just turned around and left, totally shocked. Days passed. Jokes about my love for Mikkel did not stop, but only when there was somebody around. In our room, Mikkel returned only to go to bed, staying completely silent. I did not know what to do. Abandoning the academy was stupid, and I didn't really want to complain. It was, after all, only jokes, only words. And much more than words. I was tormented by the question of what was wrong with Mikkel. Why was he so cruel? Some semblance of an answer came to me unexpectedly. I was walking by myself along the path between campuses when a guy from another class suddenly called me over. We were alone, but he was whispering and looking around, and he confided in me that he had hated Mikkel for a long time. Mikkel used to go out with his sister, but he dumped her. And from her, he knew something about Mikkel. He just had no idea how to use it in the best way. And now, If I wanted to take revenge on Mikkel for all his bullying, then I should simply ask Mikkel, in front of the crowd, how his Uncle Eric is doing. I really didn't want to use this information, all the more so because I didn't know what was behind these words. But when Mikkel started his performance again, in a mocking tone, begging me to give him a break from my passionate confessions, I simply said, "Okay, so let's do something else for a change. For example, we can call your Uncle Eric and ask him if he misses you." I did not expect such a result of these plain words. Mikkel shut up at once and turned pale. The other guys couldn't help but notice it and started to ask, giggling, what was wrong with Mikkel. "Well, guys, I suddenly felt sick from his sweet voice," he muttered and left abruptly. When I returned to my room later on, Mikkel flew at me. He pushed me to the wall, with his face twisted, and asked who told me about Uncle Eric and what exactly was said. Well, I told him the truth, that I knew nothing but the name, and that I did not want to know anything else. But if he did not stop his idiotic jokes, I would remind him about his uncle every time I heard them. He let me go, and the jokes stopped. Of course, we did not become friends again, but we finished the year in peace and went on summer break. The next year, Mikkel did not return to the academy. I had a new roommate, a talkative chubby guy, and while he was chatting, I thought about Mikkel, and I realized that I could not stop thinking about who that mysterious Uncle Eric was. I found the guy who gave me that name, and asked him to tell me everything, and he did. But he made me promise that I wouldn't tell anybody about who my informant was. But he was worried for no reason. This was just about me and Mikkel. So, when Mikkel was a little kid, he and his Uncle Eric, the single, childless brother of Mikkel's mother, were really close. But when the family found out that Eric was gay, Mikkel's father was extremely angry. He forbade Eric to even show up at their house or talk with his son. Mikkel tried to argue with his father and to convince him that Uncle Eric was okay. But his father became furious and said if Mikkel was as okay as his uncle, he would personally kick him out of the house and give him up for adoption. The guy also added, giggling, that for as long as he knew Mikkel, he was always obsessed with the idea that he was a true he-man and that he was hysterically homophobic. So, I finally learned the great mystery of Mikkel. But I didn't feel anything except sadness.